This is the Toplofty Lounge. We're in for a smooth show for you today. Oh yeah, baby. In 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, baby. Yeah, here we go. In 11, 10, 9. Oh yeah, baby. Here we come. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Hello, and welcome everyone to the Toplofty Lounge, episode 51. Is it that many already? My goodness. Conversations for the elevated. Welcome, fellow snobs. This week we're going to talk about fixing, at the request of one of our viewers, one of our science fiction fans, fellow snobs. We're going to discuss fixing the black hole, and he's going to be on the show here in a second. And yeah, we're going to talk about that. But before we do, I have to introduce my co-host. He is the Bob to my Vincent, the star to my Maximilian. It's Cam. Say hello, Cam.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us, those of you who have shown up early.
We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Indeed.
All right. Well, let's, shall we bring in John? Let's bring in John for our little bit while we wait. John, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. I am a magnanimous snob, I must say.
Right.
Wonderful.
Do you want to tell the audience anything about yourself that they want to know, or it's interesting, or whatever?
Sure. So, as my guest, my name is John Cyrano. I spend a lot of time on X talking about swords, science fiction, role-playing games, genre literature, and what I like to call ephemera. I consider myself a longtime student of ephemeral works of art, things like pulp fiction, popular films, and so forth. I don't really want to talk too much about the timeless literature. That's what a lot of other people are doing. But I like to talk about how the stuff that the big critics don't notice and how important they are.
Well, I mean, most of that sounds like you fit in well with the crowd that hang around here. We've got all that science fiction, role-playing fans, all that kind of stuff. So I think that fits in pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can help elevate the Toplofty Lounge even more, right?
Yeah, we could.
My best.
Yeah. We're even more elevated. Wow.
Right.
Super elevated. All right. So before we get going, we like to kill a little time at the beginning, give people a chance to come in. Those YouTube algorithms are slow, letting people in. Cam, you want to tell us about your week, what you're up to?
Silly, busy week, ending with the need to fix a toilet. So that's what I spent my day yesterday doing. But since we have a strong topic and a guest, I won't go into it unless we need to pad out the end. So, but it was successful. Spoiler alert.
Fixing a toilet?
Yeah.
I fixed mine a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned.
Let me turn on the frog music first. That's very calming and relaxing. I'm sure everybody needs that. All right. Here we go. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so you fixed the toilet. Oh, okay. What about you, John? Anything that special happened this week? Yeah.
Well, today, as I was saying earlier, the rear part of my property looks a little like this, very swampy, and I was trying to finally dry enough to mow, and I found a box turtle. So now that box turtle owns that part of my property, and I'm not going to mow it.
I haven't mowed yet. You know what? You didn't. Where do you? Are you in the States?
Yes.
You want to tell us what state or?
So I live in rural Missouri.
Rural Missouri, right on. Okay, well, I can see how this looks like here. Yeah, my property. This is a shot from my property. And,
nice.
I got to cut the grass. I had some geese. They had some geese that were hanging around the. They moved on, but they were like in the middle of the in the lawn and sitting there. That usually means they're thinking about having this space as a nesting area. I'm like, oh, it's right in the middle of my lawn. I wouldn't be able to cut the grass until they everything hatched because Canada geese are really nasty.
Well, apparently they all came here because there was three families of geese blocking up the road for me yesterday. So baby, had a lot of baby, various parents and then groups of babies with them. So.
Oh well, we have that all the time. Like literally, the town that I'm in, whenever I'm driving around, outside of town, we often have to stop for geese to be crossing, and they're always sitting on the sides of the road, thinking about nesting there. So if you drive down, you got to slow down a little bit in case they just decide to jump out. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a pain. So yeah, yeah, all right. Anything else? Anybody want to? Have we given up enough time? Do you guys have you Americans have a holiday tomorrow? Are you guys working or holiday?
No, it's a week from tomorrow's Memorial Day.
Oh, right. It's Victoria Day tomorrow, so we're taking time off because of Queen Victoria and something.
Oh, nice.
I don't know whatever she did, but it's Victoria Day. It's everybody gets a day off. It's like Memorial Day, but just
for Canadians.
For Canadians, or well, you guys probably copied us, but to be honest, so I'm sure we had it before you. But yeah, whatever.
You tell yourself whatever you need to, there, buddy. Oh wait,
that's what you guys usually do. What are you talking about?
Okay, sure. We should note that you have 578 subscribers, which I think is a few more than last week.
That is a record. That's right. Every time it goes above that, it's a record.
Right, inch by inch.
One more or two more than it was last week. It was 576. So we're creeping up.
Woo!
Trying to get up there. We're trying to get up there trying to get to 1,000 by July.
All right, John. That means you got to really hit it out of the park this episode, and
that's right. And bring all your friends and family, and get them all in here.
I will do my best. I will do my best. And my daughter is just in the next room serenading. So if there's songs wafting through, just enjoy the extra content.
All right. It'll be much better than the frogs we're hearing right now. So.
I don't know. I like frogs.
The frogs are almost. Mating season's almost over. They're going to quiet down for the rest soon. I've only got a couple more days of that. So let's say who's in the chat. We got Weatherman's here. Dave is here. Who else is in here? Oh, PBR Street Gang, welcome. Yes, that's it. Anyone else is
Snuggy Junior's here also.
Oh, Snuggy Junior jumped in. Oh, at the bottom. Okay, good. I gotta get that scroll button and scroll all the way to the bottom next time. I gotta remember to do that. There's a couple people that are hiding in the chat. That's fine. Hey, you can Ninja Watchers, you can hide. That's all right. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. All right, let's shall we, gentlemen, have we we're 8 minutes in. I think we can get started. People who are going to come in. Hey, Snuggy, how's it going? Anybody who's going to come in is probably got enough time to come in. So I think we should maybe get started on the show. How does that sound? Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh, I don't like that. There we go. Okay, so Cam, we talked about it. Do you want to do a quick little synopsis of anybody who might be new, who didn't know what the black hole was, what it is, etc., the movie and the plot? And I'm gonna dump in. I guess I'll dump in the link from last show if anybody wants to read our whole synopsis of the show, the movie, the black hole. We're not gonna go over that. We're gonna try to fix it today. That's all we're gonna do. Fix it. Quick plot summary, and then on to fixing it. That's what John wants to do. This show is all about him. So yeah, we'll do that.
All right. So, Black Hole, 1979 film. It's basically Disney sci-fi, and the movie starts out with actually quite a long orchestral number, but then moves into some interesting graphics. But then we get into the story, which is the USS Palomino, which is an Earth ship, is returning from its mission. According to the plot here, it's 547 days. So, over a year they've been out in space. And they're charting a path home and having a bit of a problem, and they discover that their course is needing correction because there's a black hole somewhere near their path, not directly to it. And they decide to deviate and go investigate. And they have a little bit of a chat about the black hole. and I'll talk about that later, but just to note it. Lo and behold, they find, to their surprise, a, near the black hole is a ship which they run through their registry and find out is the USS Cygnus, which it was reported lost 20 years ago. And so they decide to move in to investigate, almost get pulled into the black hole themselves, kind of fight to get out of there, but the ship takes some damage. And they're able to do that, though, and return to the Cygnus and land on it. And in getting back there, the Cygnus comes to life, lights up and everything, and then that's how they're able to dock with it. They go to explore the ship, finding it pretty much abandoned, empty. But then they do eventually find that the leader of the crew, or the commander of the ship and scientific leader, Dr. Reinhardt, is in fact alive, and with the rest of the crew the crew had been ordered home, and they weren't able to communicate, but the rest of the crew did leave, according to Reinhardt. And so he was left on board with androids that he created, and then there's also security robots and things. So it's just him, and then of course the leader of the security robots, Maximilian. And so he goes through and explains that they basically have some repartee, and he's found a way to create an anti-gravity field that allows the Cygnus to stay in place and not get sucked into the black hole. And then he explains that he plans to go into the black hole and travel through it. And he has some controversial ideas on how that will happen. And the crew, starts to get a little suspicious of things. Lo and behold, he's kind of a nefarious guy. And then the crew is trying to escape, having fixed their ship and get away, as Reinhardt is trying to go into the black hole. And then action ensues, and, well, spoiler, they end up going through the black hole. So that's kind of the quick version. And I guess we could take it from there.
All right. Okay, John, this is your deal. Maybe we should go over we should talk about the major problems with the movie.
Can you turn the frogs off at this point?
Oh, hey, what? I didn't turn my mistake. Sorry.
That's just your frogs.
There we go.
Sorry. I forgot about those. I just got so used to it because it's around here all the time. Maybe we should talk about what the major problems are with the movie.
Sure.
John, you want to, and then we'll look at fixing them.
Yeah, John. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give us your general take on it and the starting point for this? Because if the audience isn't aware, we brought you on because Snob saw your tweet on this, just kind of out of the blue, not connected with us at all, and It just happened to overlap with some of the things we talked about. So,
and plus, I'm always hurting for show ideas, right?
That's right. We're exploiting you, John, for content.
Right. That's perfectly fine. So
that's what I do best.
I had posted kind of out of the blue about that because something else made a reference. Ironically, I'm going to bring up, it was a reference to a Warhammer 40K ship, this gigantic thing, which I went, that's just a cheap copy of the Cygnus.
Mm.
And
they do tend to look like, the 40K ships do tend to look like
right.
Cygnus.
And the Cygnus and much of the imagery of the black hole, much like UCAM, has lived in my brain since I saw it as a child. And so I decided, well, that's not enough. I want to say something about that. I want to say something about this film. And what I said was, there's a much better film in the black hole than the one we saw on the screen. Mm-hmm. And it was funny when I rewatched it and I saw everything with the effects is so amazing and iconic, and in some ways more artistically interesting than many of the other films of the same period that they were arguably trying to imitate. The Gothic Art Deco style of the Cygnus, the Palomino, which it was like Astropunk, was NASA punk before anybody had ever conceived of doing NASA punk. Um, and then, and then everything with the actors is just so flat and dull and mannered. There's a certain style in the 1950s and 60s, and I'm not an expert on film, but you just park the film there, you just park the camera, and you have the actors walk back and forth in front of it and do their thing. And that's what they did here. And in the 70s, you had the cinema verite movement, which, even in genre films like Star Wars, you started to see this sort of lived in sort of fiction. And then in 1979, there's this movie, this absolutely gorgeous movie, high concept, really weird stuff going on that looks like it was made in 1948.
It's funny you say that because I, I think I said something similar on the original, that it was a lot of the people that made this were kind of near the end of their career, I think, or certainly seasoned. And I was watching it today. I said this seems like a movie made in the 50s.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The funny thing is, I think the actors were capable of it. Ernest Borgnine, we see him a few years later in Escape from New York, and he's great.
Yep. Snuggy mentioned that in the chat.
Yeah, and Anthony Perkins. And I guess the one thing, because I listened to the previous stream, and I was like, wow, I'm hearing exactly everything, that your problems and everything was. I think Maximilian Schell was acting in that movie that I want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Just this gigantic, over the top, big theatrical. The guy he reminded me of was a few Khan in The Wrath of Khan.
Oh, Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah, Ricardo Montalban. He's like, this is a role that requires chewing the scenery, spitting it out, and taking another bite. And so that's what he did.
Yeah, and so you're saying he kind of was doing it, and the rest of the cast just didn't kind of go to that level. They just kind of.
Robert Forster, I mean, God love him, because he's great in other stuff, but he just could not carry the charismatic lead for this role. That was the captain.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Dan.
Dan.
Yeah, he was kind of stoic and a little grumpy and kind of flat, like you say.
Yeah. So kind of getting in the segue from there, and I think also you point out is so much of this film is just, okay, now we need to have meteors hit.
Right. Yeah, it's just at some point it just goes, okay, now we're doing action. Let's go.
And so if I was going to fix this film, that's the effects. I actually would almost, let's use the 1979 effects. Let's just go with that. And then just, I don't know, use a steady cam, follow the people. I don't know if we want to jump right into talking about fixing the film yet.
Yeah. Well, Snob, do you got any comments on that?
No. I mean, you guys are doing good. I think, the problems. Yeah. I mean, let's kind of outline the problems, and then we can. I know we can do it however we want. You want to outline the problem, and then we can do that. Sure.
I'll just say one thing, and then we can go right into it. And so I think we're pretty much on the same page. From my perspective, it seemed, they, like you said, the visuals and everything in this are really cool. They kind of have the atmosphere set up very nicely, and where it could be this kind of suspense movie where there's a lot of back and forth between the characters and whatever their motivations are and their goals, and it just kind of, it starts that way and then turns into this action flick. So I won't go into what my ideas are, but that's the way I saw it happening. And now maybe you'd like to say where.
Well, let me say one thing. I mean, I agree that most of the effects are okay. There's a couple of weak. I pointed this out in the original, our original show. There's a couple points where there's some weak, obvious. There it's a green screen, and you can see the outlines on the actors. I would clean that up a little bit, but overall, I would agree with John that the effects are reasonably good. throughout the movie.
Yeah, for
except those
1979, and
songs.
I think it holds up fairly well. But yeah, a special edition or something could clean up the the visuals for sure.
Yeah, that's
But
all I
anyway,
want
okay,
to add.
all right, go ahead, John. Take it away. What's your
So
basis and
so I just say I like the overall plot of the film, and I think my concept of the film would largely follow the same role. In fact, I kind of like the fact that it's a mishmash of a lot of different things. Um, so the very first thing that I would do is I would pick a single point of view character, and that's who you follow. I mean, you'll occasionally cut off and see other people, but the black hole is filmed from this sort of omniscient character omniscient top down approach. And so you don't get this feeling of emotional connection with any of the characters. So I would pick somebody, it would probably be, from my perspective, Charlie Pizer. I would reorient a lot of the plot line to focus on Charlie as sort of a young, spunky guy, who he's a little bit more adventurous than everybody else. And so he winds up discovering and having all the conflicts and finding out that Reinhardt is nefarious. I think if you just stop trying to just sort of look down on all these people and have them act, suddenly and just follow a single point of view, you can cut to different people. Like Vincent, definitely need to cut to him. That right there will tonally change all the scenes and make them more immediate, even the really boring expedition parts.
Well, I think that's an interesting idea, and I also think it's not a bad idea because Charlie is the one that shows a little bit of pep, out of the crew. And let's continue with your idea on that. But I had one similar, and I had written down that I thought Durant might be the one to follow because he was the one that seemed to engage most with Reinhardt. But that doesn't mean that couldn't happen in what you're talking about. You're just talking about the point of view character. So let's keep rolling with that.
No, that's
I would say, like, I mean, I kind of agree with John, because if you want, sorry, Cam, you said you wanted to go on to what the scientist.
Well, yeah, I was thinking that. It wasn't necessarily the same idea because I didn't think of the perspective thing that John had mentioned. I was just thinking that the plot might flow a little more strongly through Durant or Anthony Perkins.
Yeah, because he's kind of he spends a lot of time talking with Reinhardt, and you could get that could get the evil stuff out of him, or at least the villain's perspective and a little more. But he doesn't. You need to follow someone who's going to find out the fact that the crew is off. There's these things going on.
Yeah, absolutely fair point. And
he never does that, right? The scientist, he sits with them the whole time. Everybody else goes out and finds.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of the perspective issue that John's talking about. I think Charlie probably is the better choice for that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, though, thinking about it, a lot of TV shows now have these big ensemble casts, and one of the ways they handle that is, they do different points of view, like the Black Hole did, but every scene has a POV. There's always a protagonist in that scene. So you could have scenes with Dr. Durant as the POV character, especially, like the dinner scene where they're sitting there and afterwards, and you can tell Durant is halfway ready to make out with Dr. Reinhardt.
Yeah. As Harry said, he's hypnotized by the man.
Right. That scene could have been done from Reinhardt. If they had just, written every scene from a particular character's perspective. You could have had like the scenes with Vincent where it's more from Vincent's perspective. Those are probably the ones that are probably the closest to that. With Vincent is your POV character. And I like Vincent, so that's okay.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, I think everybody likes Vincent. Like, he's like the most.
I liked Bob too when I was a little kid. You mentioned I was your Bob to your Vincent, and I felt sorry for Bob. It was very that worked very well for me as a little kid. So.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, I know. I think that that right there would have made all of the scenes a little bit stronger if we'd have gotten that strong sense of seeing this world, discovering all of this through somebody's eyes. That'd be my first like fix.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
makes that
I
makes
think
sense.
that's a good point because he's the kind of. I mean, the only problem is that at the beginning, they leave him on the ship, and everybody else goes off.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the only.
You
That
don't
was the
get.
only like.
Yeah, that's true. You don't get his initial reaction to anything. It's everyone
Yeah,
else's.
yeah.
I'd
They
have
bring
left
him
Dan
in.
on
They
the
bring
ship.
him in quick, but yeah, you wouldn't have left him on the ship. You would have maybe everyone could leave, and there's really no reason you have to leave someone on the ship, right? Like, I mean, Kirk and Spock always go down to the planet with McCoy, right? Like,
Mm.
you can break that. We don't have to be slaves to that rule. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you just bring him along. The whole. He's the only other person that has a gun. He's the only other person there that has any sort of military experience. To be honest, right? The rest of them are all scientists. It's only really two,
Well,
flight officers.
Harry's a journalist, so
Yeah.
you've got the two scientists, the two kind of operations person, and then whatever Harry's there for.
Yeah. So they're the only two operational people. So maybe
Right.
you'd want to bring them both, right? It's not.
And can you imagine if we had gotten a little bit at the beginning of the politics of the world of why there's a journalist on a scientific mission?
I mean,
Yeah.
I can see that there's be a journalist, but not on a mission this small, right?
Well,
Like, if it was a huge mission, there's 200 people. Like, all right, we're going somewhere special. We want someone to chronicle it.
well, let me interject on that point if I can, because one of the complaint, it wasn't really a suggestion, but it was a complaint, and they briefly touched on it, what the Palomino was doing, which is basically they were looking for habitable worlds, I think.
Yeah.
And they were surprised to find the Cygnus because someone said, who would be out here farther than we are? So they're implying that they are kind of one of the early exploration missions, going out there. So maybe, and I think they could have filled that in a little bit more and given us a little bit more around on their background, because it could lead to different reasons to have conflict, other than what they did. But that might be a reason why they had a journalist, because it was like, well, this is the first thing, and this guy is, his job is to report on it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
But they didn't go into
it
it very well, though.
Yeah, I mean, you could have it's interesting, but you're sending a whole journalist. You could just send back reports. Oh, we found this planet and it's got this on it or something. It seems, yeah. I mean, it's a big. I mean, you could have rewritten that character as a different character, and still had him. I mean, like what did Ernest Borgnine do on the show, on the movie? His job was he knew more about Reinhardt because he met him before.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
Could have been
the exposition.
there could have been another scientist there who had clashed with Reinhardt, and so then therefore knew him. And he was also the guy at the end who wants to be the coward and blow up the ship for them. That's basically.
Yeah, he made a strong left turn, 180, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Harry's like, let's take over the ship, and he's like, let's get out of here.
Yeah, he did.
But what do you think, John? Anything else on that?
No, I agree with you. I think kind of my thing was like early on, there's just these little tidbits in the Palomino that are some world building. And Cam, you said it before, and I really agree. It's a 90-minute film.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie really needed about 20 more minutes to breathe and some world build. And there was some really interesting stuff with when they're doing the starship silhouettes and you hear about all the different worlds there are.
Right.
That it would have been interesting. That would have been an interesting little world build, what they're doing, why they're doing it. And
yeah, you're right, because they mention all the different nations and everything, and then Harry talks about politics, but you don't really get any context of where things are, in their world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the characters are assumed. I mean, we assume all the characters are American. They don't wear any flags or anything. I mean, maybe they could have made the crew a little more, diverse, or had them be from different countries, and then you get the idea. Okay, that here's a scientist from here, and here's a scientist from here. It's some sort of, the Earth is somehow united, and they're going out. But they talk about Earth, as if it's united, but yet everybody is, they don't appear to
Well,
come from different places or anything.
There's clearly politics. We know that.
Yeah.
Meaning, different factions in whatever it is, which is, of course, natural, but,
Yeah. But there's no, there's nothing more. There's lots of ways they could have done it. Added more.
So maybe I can mention as a primer and to for other ideas you have. To me, it strikes me, and that the conflict that occurs seems incidental, meaning they just kind of wandered into conflict. There is no inherent conflict between these two groups. In reality, Reinhardt says, it's like here he gives Durant his formulas. It's like he wants to turn over his information, and he wants them to observe him going into the black hole and report on it. So there isn't really a reason for them to be in conflict other than what they wander into. And my first thought was maybe there should have been something else, and maybe it could relate to the political thing that. Yeah,
The fact that he's got this powerful ship that he's not, this giant ship that they made that cost a fortune, and it seems nobody is able to build something that big anymore.
Yeah,
or haven't been,
And maybe there is a motivation for wanting to drag him back, or maybe the Cygnus can't go through the black hole, and he's been waiting out here all this time, and he doesn't have a probe ship or something. And it's like, oh, the Palomino's here. I need that ship because that's what's going to go into the black hole.
That would be that would be great. Yeah, right there. I was trying to think of a reason for him to want to keep them on the ship, because I agree there has to be a conflict, and there isn't one in the black hole as it's written, other than Reinhardt's a nut job. But maybe if they needed the Palomino to go through the black hole.
Yeah, because as it was presented, it's like, just let him go. I mean, you don't have to do anything. just let him go, and everything works out.
If he had not been so darn creepy, this whole thing would have been fine.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. The captain is there, and they're like, oh well, you didn't bring the ship back. Someone might say that's mutiny, and but the captain is I guess he doesn't really care. He's like, let's just get the hell out of here, right? Oh well, let him keep the ship. Let him keep this very expensive piece of hardware that we've been looking for and thought was destroyed, and he's actually a mutineer. But oh well. Yeah, I mean, he could have. I understand why he won't want to do that. It's like, it's dangerous. There's all these robots. They're pretty, violent. This Maximilian is pretty violent. Maybe he want to escape, but he doesn't say that. He doesn't say, I'm going to forget about the mutiny because these guys are too dangerous. He just says, all right, let's just get out of here. Yeah, I had enough of these guys.
I think there's a very powerful motivation for them to want to escape, because Reinhardt has invented magical anti-gravity technology. And so, they could have really hammered hard that this is something the Earth needs, that they have to get it home, that it is their absolute duty to get this back to Earth, and all of their lives are less important than getting this back home.
The ship or the information?
The information.
Yeah.
The technology that Reinhardt has developed out here. I mean, he's got a ship floating off of a black hole.
Right. Yeah, but he only gives
I want to talk about the imagery of the black hole in a minute. But yeah.
But he doesn't. He only gives the information for the black hole, like to the scientist at the very end, and of course, Maximilian kills him. So it doesn't seem keen on getting that information back. He's kind of like, I mean, it's obviously a good idea, but it's doesn't say, "Hey, give us the information." Yeah.
But that could be a valid motivation for them, because, like you said, they're amazed by it. It's like, that this could even be possible. So there's this massive discovery that they've stumbled on, or he developed, but that they learned about, and it's like, yes, that's something that Earth needs. Just the same, in the same vein is he was talking about his power system that he developed that was enough to power Earth, and they, so they should. It could again have been like, oh my God, this is a discovery. We have to get this back to Earth, and it could have been him saying, no, I'm not going to give that to you, and then that could have been a setup for conflict. But anyway,
yeah, but they don't. Then I kind of wonder if there was. I kind of wonder if there was stuff left on the cutting room floor, because it seems, the movie seems to be, who knows. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
John.
And so I just really fast, I have to say, so the imagery of the black hole in this film, the swirling of the light going around the event horizon,
Yeah.
like I said, that has lived in my brain my entire life. And so if I were to remake this film, I would not use the modern interstellar imagery of the black hole. I would repeat this, and I would add a single line. It's probably not in any way scientifically accurate, but it was like, it looks like it's just funneling in. It's like, well, it, a black hole, is crashing everything to a single point. Everything is falling 90 degrees away from everywhere. If you went a few light years in another direction, it would look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so finally I've got a justification for a black hole looking like a whirlpool in the film, so that I can have my beautiful imagery from 1979.
Yeah, I agree. It's worth justifying, because
Yeah.
it was an iconic look.
Yeah, it's a
And
movie. You do what you want.
Yeah.
I say.
But yeah, I mean, you give them a conflict, you give them a reason to oppose Reinhardt above and beyond. He's creepy. You put the perspective. I think. Oh, Vincent, there we go. Here's the other political thing. Why do these guys have guns?
And missiles. The Palomino is armed actually. So
yeah, and Vincent is has two lasers built into his body.
Yeah,
This is a seriously armed up society.
It's true, I was just gonna say, there's no mention that there are aliens. There's no sense of that, and they are also, they mentioned that they're expecting to be the first ones out this far. So there would be no reason to expect an encounter with any living beings.
Yeah, I mean they're surveying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, maybe you want to have guns if they're actually going down to on the planets and surveying them. Maybe that was the thought. I mean, if we were to do that and survey a bunch of planets, we'd send robots out. But if you were to do it man-made, you wouldn't go to the planet. You just fly by. You just examine the atmosphere and do all that kind of stuff. I don't think you'd land. It would be too dangerous, and too energy costs too much energy to go up and down out of gravity wells and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of strange. Like, the only reason to have guns is, you're concerned about a mutiny, and there's only 5 of them, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, why is that always made me wonder too. The other related to that is also on the ship. Like, there's, everybody is controlled on the ship. He's got all his robots. So, oh yeah, they're programmed to, react to intruders. I mean, it's been 20 years. No one knows that they're there. How many intruders have they had in 20 years, right? Like, do they normally have people, stopping by the ship and, we gotta repel borders all the time?
Well, none that survived. We know that, right?
Yeah, it's a little questionable.
None that lived to tell about it.
Yeah, that kind of implies that perhaps that there was a time. And this is what my assumption is, that perhaps with the original mutiny, right? There's a time where there's some sort of battles going on in the ship, and it's Reinhardt and his robots versus the rest of the crew, and he slowly wins that battle somehow, and then converts them into his humanoid robots.
Yeah,
so there might be a whole story there.
I mean, Kate's dad was leading the mutiny, and they killed him, and I don't know if that ended it right there, but clearly Reinhardt did win.
Yeah. He could have a whole movie right there. The battle.
Okay, so John, on my thing about the conflict or any other idea you had, was there any other large, broad scale changes that you think? You mentioned about the perspective of following that. Do you have another category of changes you think would be helpful?
Well, I mean, if I were remaking the film, a lot of what I would be doing is, ironically, I think the black hole, as mentioned, during that early 2000s where they were remaking every film and they were just notionally faithful to the original plot lines
Mm-hmm.
of these films, like the new RoboCop from like 2008. This is a film that would have been very good in that period. Somebody who is like, just make it cool.
Mm-hmm.
And but if I was keeping with the overall theme, it would largely let it breathe, give it a little bit more, give people a little bit more time. I would have said screw it and let Yvette Mimieux have her long hair, because she's an absolutely gorgeous woman, and this haircut makes her look like Mrs. Cleaver.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
added the haircut added 20 years to her.
And she's a gorgeous woman. I didn't realize it. Because I was like, wow, it's so nice that they cast a middle-aged lady to be in this film. And then I went and found pictures of her online, and yeah, she's not
She's
normally
not
like
middle aged. I was sure.
I don't
She
know
was
how
four-
old she is, but she's probably in her 30s
It looks like
in
she's
this
at
film.
least
Well,
40.
it says she was born in 1942, so
Okay,
she would have been.
1942. So making this film, yeah, my
79.
that would be in her 20s, 20s or early 30s.
So, I mean, they could
Let
have
me
put her.
see. No, my mother was 29 and 71. So okay, so 76. So she would have been in her mid 30s, about 35.
They could have put her hair up in a like a hair, some sort of hairdo that she took down later.
Yes.
And then there you go. There's your problem solved about the haircut thing.
Yeah. So I mean, after that, you give each scene a perspective. Then it's largely just putting in some filler document, subtracting a bit of the highfalutin 1940s style scientific philosopher crap, make it a little more, but lean a little harder into Reinhardt's madness, his duality.
Mm-hmm.
And then just some filler lines, like there needs to be a line early in the film where they mention that they bypassed a meteor swarm that is sure to be diverted to this thing, and Reinhardt dismisses it with his that his gravity protects the Cygnus, and then when the Palomino hits it, that's gone. That protection is knocked out, and now you have a justification for why suddenly there's a meteor shower destroying the ship, which hasn't happened for 20 years.
Well, in relation to what you were saying about the appearance of it, they could have had, it's like, yeah, there's something where that's constantly feeding matter into this, and you see that, and then that's what they end up running into, when things start to go wrong, which, so you could have all this disaster movie kind of stuff in there.
You could also have him, they're constantly making adjustments on the ship to avoid matter that's coming in, right?
That would be neat.
Yeah. So and then for some reason it fails. They fail to do it. A piece, something breaks.
Well, you know what?
So he just a sort of a throw, a line where he's like doing something. Oh, excuse me, I have to move the ship. There's matter coming in all the time. We have to dodge it.
There's already something that could go along with that very well. As Reinhardt talks about, there's a certain angle he's going at it, to be able to get in. And it could also be involving to avoid all this other stuff, meaning it's the path we have to go on for any number of reasons. And that's what they're doing. And so it would kind of set that up because it just kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, where these meteors come? Where'd they come from? It was very jarring to me watching it, that just started happening. The Palomino got shot down and it hit it, and so there's already reason for the things to be going wrong on the ship, but then you've got the meteor shower that comes in as well, which amps up the danger, of course, but I don't know, it strikes me as a little stretched.
You needed to show. It's just out of the blue. Yeah, you needed to have something that sets that up earlier in the film, so that when it suddenly occurs right then and causes all the problems, you go, oh yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned about Ryan, delving into Reinhardt's madness, and I had a note that I didn't think it was helpful to have him seem so hostile so soon. You know, it's like he's hiding there while they're wandering around, and so you're suspicious of him right away. I think it would have been more beneficial if he was putting on this act of, oh my god, someone finally found us, da 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 da, and been all this positive stuff. He had a little bit of positive with his lie about her father and how he was a great friend and all that, but I think they could have played that up more, and then as you go along and learn more, it's like, this is starting to look weirder and weirder, and as you go, and then his madness starts to come out more and more, and had like a trajectory to it, rather than just kind of hot and cold, on and off, hostile, playing nice.
Yeah, I'd see him as being really magnanimous at the beginning. Oh, welcome to my ship, and like all that, like a super villain or a Bond villain. And then, of course, as soon as you've looked through his lies, then he becomes very, nasty. And oh well, in that case, I'll have to kill you all. Oh well.
Yeah, I think, like, for example, when they're on the bridge there and Maximilian is getting too hot, and that's another thing. I think Maximilian being so openly hostile to begin with was not helpful. It could have been more like, he's like this enforcer guy that's there. It's like, he looks pretty scary, but without him being so directly threatening. And but maybe that starts to come through a little bit, and Dan's like, hey, call him off, and he's, how Reinhardt like turns on him. That could have still been in there, is like the first sign of, oh, there's a little, there's a little edge here. There's something not quite right.
Yeah, there's an just on that, as an example, in was it Empire, where 3PO gets blown up and thrown into pieces. You could have a sort of a similar type of scene like that, where they start to see another hint. You start to see, one of their robots is damaged. You see something like that that make them think, hey, there's something weird going on here. Things are not how they seem.
And along with John's point about, if you're kind of seeing this through the lens of Charlie, that he's maybe wide-eyed. It's like, whoa, this is a really cool adventure. I can't believe we're doing this. And then, as you see his reaction to these events happening, it's like, he's starting to turn the other way. It's like, this isn't so fun anymore, As a possibility, I just mean.
Great idea.
Before we go on, I want to address the weatherman's point, because we're talking about Reinhardt. But you have something on that first, John, and then we can talk about split personality idea. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Well, I actually no, that's actually fantastic. I mean,
and
sorry.
I was going to say, it links in with the thing where he throws in the "Save me" from Maximilian line later on.
Which to my way of thinking is the key point. That is that line, which is an ad lib by Maximilian Schell, and that's why I say Maximilian Schell was the only person who understood the film. That line is the key to Reinhardt.
Yeah,
the entire movie should be leading up to that line. That Maximilian is Reinhardt's guardian demon.
Yeah.
It is his jailer. He is supposedly in control, but he's externalized all of his demons and put them into Maximilian. Except Maximilian is a robot, so it's really him. It's the split personality. He's externalized it, and he's imposed it on this demonic looking robot, but it's just a robot. And that's the beautiful thing, is it's all about this interior person. But you've got this robot to think of as the big bad, and he has basically said, this is the person who's forcing me. And I mean, the great thing, it's a throwaway. Did I lose you? Oh, no. Okay.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Sorry, my computer suddenly went dark because I hadn't touched the mouse in a minute.
No, you're good.
But you see you see when he kills Durant, he says, you shouldn't have done that. He was a good man. Except, Reinhardt wanted him dead.
You think so?
Yeah, it's...
Oh, yeah. He wanted... It was... Maximilian is the gun that Reinhardt shoots.
Yeah.
But then he says, why did you make me do it?
Well, yeah, because at that point, I think he was good with Durant and to begin with, but he did turn on him, though. It's like he revealed his secret. He took the mask off the guy. It's like, oh, now I have to kill you, kind of thing.
That's a good point.
And it wouldn't, I mean, that was like 30 seconds. And I'm like, that 30-second, and it's all an accident that the director and the script writer didn't intend.
Yeah.
And
I
it
mean,
should be the key point of the entire movie. The
yeah,
linchpin. Sorry.
yeah, the thing, like, I agree that it's been better. The thing is that it, for me, it, you know, Durant was very, you know, worshipful of Reinhardt. So I would think Reinhardt would love that about him.
Yeah.
You know, because he's like, you know, falling over. Wow, you're so great, and he's just like, yes, finally, someone to, you know, bask in it, to.
And I think he did. I think he was sincere about that until
yeah,
you know, because Kate pushed the issue, you know, because she had to, but you know, she pushed Durant back into thinking clearly, and then the jig was up at that point, right?
I kind of thought that switch went a little too fast for me.
Mhm.
But
You're right.
On the other side of it, though, it's like, you know, Reinhardt is evil and crazy. He should be able to change quickly. That's part of the danger of him. That what makes him, you know, unpredictable, and
well,
so
but
maybe it's not so bad.
To John's general point that these things did need a little more time to percolate, you know, and develop, rather than happening in a 2-minute, you know, span of time.
Yeah. Yeah, DP's talking about Loboto's crew against that could seem to happen earlier. We were talking about that. Flipped out because someone stole his strawberries or something. Yeah, we need to see the crazy come out a little bit.
Okay,
he should have been. He sounded like, as soon as I saw him, he was an evil genius right off the bat. You could like, oh, this guy's a supervillain. He should have started out a little more magnanimous and then flip out on something, and then you start seeing the evil come out, and you're like, hey, this guy's crazy.
Right, when he puts on his dinner outfit, then you know it's like, oh, okay, this guy's a megalomaniac now.
Yeah.
Well, to Dave's point there about the lobotomized crew, I guess this is the time to insert this. I thought, you know, again, I was just kind of musing about different ideas, and one of them was in terms of motivation for conflict between these characters is something to do with Kate's father. If he was possibly still alive as one of these, you know, zombie android
in jail,
types,
something like that.
Something, and so that could go with what Dave's saying is that maybe there is a way to save these people, you know, and so that would change the nature of the whole thing. It's like, you know, and I mean they did touch on that a little bit. It's like they're like, well, you know, I think it was Dan and Harry were talking. It's like, well, we got to save these people, you know. And Bob, I think, said you can't save them, you know. But it could have been something else, and it could have been driven by Kate with her father. It's like, no, my father's on this ship. I know it, you know. And maybe her ESP thing can come into play somehow there.
Yeah.
And,
that was not, you know, done
know,
well. The ESP was very kind of throwaway, you know. It's a good point. They could have been some sort of mind control device. They wear some helmets that make them look like robots, but and you know, in a suit, and to, you know, to hide it, but it's a mind control. You pull it off them and they come out of it, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it could have been much more nefarious, much darker, you know, that's like, it's not like they're just zombies that don't know what's going on. It's like they're being actively tortured, you know.
Yeah.
And they, you know, need to be saved.
No, that's a neat idea. I like it. And they could have steered the Cygnus into the path of the meteorites.
Oh, to destroy it on purpose?
Yeah, let us die.
Think about it. If you had this whole thing where they free the things, but you know, they're living a life of torture. They just want to die, and so they pull in.
Well, Reinhardt went and talked to a couple of. Remember, near the end there, he like goes and he's like between two of them. He's like, we can't let them. You know, it's like he was discussing it with them, you know, and now is that another ad lib and him like just going for it, or did that have some other meaning that didn't really play out? But you know, any number of those things could have been made into something.
I swear that pistol looks like a Desert Eagle.
Kind of does.
It does, yeah. Snuggie, it can only be so dark for Disney. I mean, yeah, we're theory crafting. We're trying to make a better movie.
Snuggie, did you see the end of this? Or they're in hell.
They're in hell.
Yeah, and then there's a Dragon Slayer a couple of years later, where they, you know, dragon eats a woman's foot.
The hell thing was like, there's so much, like they just, you know, like we were talking about, they put him inside the body of the robot, right? They're already like what we're talking about. Maximilian is the other side of Reinhardt's personality. There's some sort of split. He externalized his split personality that way. I mean, they're basically giving it to us at the very end of the movie, but then they don't put it into the movie, right? Like,
Yeah, right. The end was just like this weird tacked on thing.
Well, it's the end. They're like, yeah, this is what we're trying to do, but it's too bad. The first, 2 minutes of the movie, we didn't give that to you, right? Like, this is what we're going for. This guy's split personality, and we put him in the shell of his robot. They finally come together in hell, but we didn't give it to you in the show. Why didn't we do that?
And I don't know.
Snuggie remembered that hell scene.
Yeah,
Snuggie.
I'm right
like
there
you,
with
Cam. Cam got rid of it. He blanked it. Cam blanked it, but
the thing, if I were doing, I know there is no flipping way that a remake would include that ending, and I feel like that ending is calling back 2001. Like they're just best ofing various science fiction and disaster movies in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, even my daughter, my young daughter, who hasn't really seen 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Isn't that a callback to 2001? That's like some 2001 type stuff."
Yeah,
she knew about from memes or I don't know, whatever they know stuff. But
I do feel sort of like it was set up in the film though, because you have Reinhardt saying, to see the face of God.
Well, and not only that, see, I didn't even remember this from our other rewatch, but at the beginning, again, rewatching it today, they're talking about, it's like, oh, when I see a black hole, it's like, I expect to see some guy with devil horns. So it's like, they were like trying to do some work to make the black hole into this villain, almost, it's like this overriding evil. And you're right. And then they mentioned the other thing. It's like, oh yeah, this changes everything, and we're discovering the truth of the universe. And so it's this kind of high, like you said, high concept stuff, but they never quite got there with it.
Right.
They have it there at the end, but they don't give it to us during.
So the question is, would you keep it? Would you lean into it, set that up, and keep that ending, including? It's funny, the hellscape ending is what everybody remembers, but the heavenly corridor, where they're essentially led by an angel through the black hole and out the other side.
I mean, Maximilian Reinhardt is evil. I mean, he deserves to be punished. So I don't have a problem with that ending. And also, I mean, we don't know that it's true. Like, he's not really in hell. It could be a hell of his own making, or, we could say it's symbolism that he died and he's evil. And blah, blah, blah.
I had a thought about that. That would be similar, but more scientifically tied. And again, this is a little pseudoscience probably. But, the whole thing about, when you're going into a black hole, and, he was trying to go in the black hole in a very specific way in which he survived. Let's say instead he ends up in the black hole in a way where every second feels like a million years, essentially eternity. And with the androids in that time, let's say instead of him getting trapped under a thing, or maybe he did get trapped under the screen or whatever, and then the androids turn on him because he loses control over them, and they're essentially tearing him apart, for example, for a few seconds, but it feels like millions of years to him.
Ooh.
So that would be hell, in quotes, but literally just a scientific stretching of reality. You could go that kind of route. If you started off with the whole thing of this being much more of a psychological, thing with Reinhardt and all his actions and craziness, and then this is where he ends up metaphorically in hell.
Yeah.
And it would amp up the gunfights. That's the other thing I do.
You would amp up the gunfights?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You didn't think they were? Because I thought they were not too bad. I mean,
I have mixed feelings about it, because the initial one, I like when Dan was rescuing her from when she's wearing the tinfoil hat and getting to be turned in. I thought that fight was horrible, but the other fights were kind of, when it was more like, to me, it felt very much like they said, oh, Star Wars had all these fights with a stormtrooper on the Death Star, so we're going to do something similar. And that's fine. But in terms of the rest of the movie, and like I said, there seems like there was a very distinct tonal break. You know, it was like, okay, we're doing this kind of this psychological thriller, this mystery or whatever, or suspense, and then it just turns into a disaster action thing. It felt a little too stark of a break to me.
Yeah.
But they could do it right. You know, I mean,
Yeah. And could I just segue off for just a second, because that reminded me. Okay, so they had the overture, and I listened to the overture, and the overture was this very heroic music, and then the credits start, and you have this other really eerie, scary music, which is the music that everybody remembers from the Black Hole.
mhm.
Well, the moment they rescue Kate, the overture music starts. That's the heroic thing.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yes, I noticed
this
that.
movie essentially has two soundtracks.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. The soundtrack does go along with this distinct feel change, you know, that I just mentioned.
And
Um,
Yeah, I noticed that the second rewatch here too. I watched it again, and I'm like,
mhm.
hey, listen to all the heroic music. You know, I'm paying more
and
attention.
but the reason is I did not think the gunfights were done very well, but I like gunfights,
Mhm.
and I think they could have been done very well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I
What you
I
have on
kind
screen
of
here is awesome,
yeah.
by the way.
Yes.
That is a
This
great
is
shot.
yeah, that's the Indiana Jones thing I talked about last time. But I thought the gunfights were. I mean, you could change them for sure. I kind of liked. I liked the aspect of them because they sort of short and dirty. You know, which most
They were
gun
actually
battles and
hitting.
these things are most gun battles are short and dirty and really fast. But in the
Mhm.
movies, it's all like, oh, it's going to take forever and everybody's shooting. And no, it's usually like, bang, 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 and and everyone's done. And so they were very short ranged and dirty with the robots shooting at each other and really quick. So I mean, I agree with you, John. They could have been done differently. You could have made it more longer, more, cinematic. But I did kind of appreciate most of these ones because they were, it's a different, short and dirty.
Nope.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I would go either way. You could do it the other way, and it would be fine too. Unless you guys have more on that, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. What Snuggie says, they did make scary stuff for kids in the 70s. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Would you guys agree, disagree? I mean, I'm thinking about the most famous 70s movie for kids, which is Star Wars. And there's some pretty, when I watched it again as an adult, I'm like, there's some pretty scary stuff in there. Princess Leia being tortured with that, big needle thing sticking out. I mean, the whole Darth Vader thing in the beginning. I mean, that guy's really scary. That gives kids the,
his aunt and uncle being burned skeletons.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I will disagree to the extent that I don't think George Lucas in 1970s, when he was making Star Wars, thought of that as a kid's movie. Now, years later, he thought of he started thinking of them as kids' movies, but I think at the time he was a 20-something. He loved that stuff. That was what he loved. So he thought of it as something for people his age, which was dudes in their 20s and 30s.
But it was
he
mainly
was making a movie for dudes in their 20s and 30s.
But it's mainly kids that watched it.
Yes.
Like it was a big, huge kids. I mean, it was the kids who were
absolutely
7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 that went back.
I don't know.
I think 30 times.
It was big with everybody though. It was universal. I mean, it was.
Yeah, it was universal still,
but yeah, of course it became carried by kids. I mean, with the toys and everything, obviously.
But
we
were Gen X. We watched Gunsmoke every Saturday.
I think it's
the body count. The body count I had seen by the time I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and again, you got to keep in mind, I think he means on TV, but the PG in 1977 was not a kid's movie. PG was pretty rough rating.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I agree that it's not, Star Wars is for children. No, it wasn't really. No, yeah, I agree. It wasn't.
Well, kids came to like it, but I mean, the reason I want to talk about this is that because there's this, as I said, when we were growing up, the 70s, there's this idea that you can, kids want to be scared a little bit. They want that tension. Let's give it to them. Let's scare them a little bit. Let's not, everything doesn't have to be watered down Disney crap with just, everything's happy in rainbows, right?
No,
Scare them a little, make them, and then good wins after that, right?
So I would agree to that. I would also say in the 70s there was far less protection. I mean, there was some there, but you know, everybody was sneaking their kids in to see Friday the 13th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Halloween.
Well,
I was a little wussy. I was a wussy little kid. I hid my eyes. I didn't see Maximilian kill Dr. Durant until I was like a teenager because I would hide my eyes.
yeah. Well, it had an impact on me, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And well, Jaws is another one. I saw Jaws at the local high school when I was, single digit little kid by myself. It's
wow.
like,
Okay.
this is not a movie for kids. You know what?
No.
Who let this happen?
And so people were letting their children watch things. They weren't necessarily for children. I mean, a lot of the movies that
you
we
gotta
think
toughen them
are
up
for kids aren't for kids, but we let the kids watch it and the kids loved it the most. So now it's a kids movie. Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, I was a huge
maybe.
Planet of the Apes fan.
I mean, part of that though is what was considered scary for kids back then is now, we're used to it. So things that are, kids watch stuff that is much more violent than they did back in our day because people are like, yeah, whatever.
Well, it's the nature of it though too, because well, I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion, but just plain old violence is something that every kid lives with. They fall down, they fight with their friends, getting hit in one form or another is one thing. Getting hit with a bad intention behind it, an evil intention behind it is different, So, seeing something psychologically evil versus a physical evil are two different things for a child's mind, I think. Like I said, I guess that's kind of a deep subject, but it's whereas this movie has got that psychological edge to it. Well, especially with the whole evil thing at the end, the hellscape thing, but just pow pow, like you said, the body count of shootouts. Little kids seem to process, at least little kids in our era, seem to process that very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I brought the whole conversation down with it.
No. You will never, it will never bother me by going philosophical.
All right. Well, we should. Okay, well, that's another show. Maybe we can have you back sometime for.
We just have to worry about the audience. That's the audience getting bored. That's all.
Injuries were features for old monkey bars.
Yeah, I mean, we were
yeah, exactly.
Get beat up all the time.
Good point, Kate Roberts.
What's this?
All right. Well,
Death Shout out saw War Games in the 8th grade. Yeah. Disney's first PG film. Sure, the studio brass was worried about their reputation. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's why Disney came up with in the 90s with Touchstone, right? Because they wanted to do more, teenager focused stuff, but they wanted
and more
Disney
hookers in their stuff, like Pretty Woman.
They wanted to keep the Disney brand as G rated general, I guess. But yeah, this was a foray into PG. And again, we were talking about this. They didn't have PG-13, right? We talked about this last time.
Right. Not until
they didn't have PG-13 yet, which was, which kind of a.
Well, and
I think PG was a fairly wide.
It
was fairly wide because it didn't have PG-13, so it kind of meant, it was a fairly wide.
Now, there's a philosophical thing that I would love to talk to you guys about. That PG-13 has been an absolute disaster for filmmaking.
Profanity. I think Dead Angel Shadow was talking about profanity. I think that's a lot of what the PG-13 became, right? I think at the beginning, or how they saw it. Oh, they're gonna say "damn." Oh, so that we got profanity that it's now PG-13. I think that's perhaps.
There was a little bit of swearing in this movie, very mild, but. Okay. Weatherman's mentioning, the airplane. That you could have a certain level of nudity in a PG movie. I mean, that would be unheard of today.
Clash of the Titans.
Yeah,
but everyone loves nudity. I mean, come on.
but I'm not even sure that a PG-13 movie can get away with much of that these days.
No, absolutely not. I think the last time I saw nudity in a PG-13 film was X-Men, the Days of Future Past, where you get to see Hugh Jackman's ass.
Oh, but he's a guy, so it doesn't matter.
And he's a guy, and he apparently had to lobby for it.
Hugh Jackman's like, I worked out. I'm going to show my butt one way or another.
Yeah, well, it was apparently since he's waking up next to a woman, he was like, I'm not going to wake up next to a woman wearing a pair of briefs. So I respect his choice.
Yeah, so respect his commitment to the craft.
Right.
Even though I don't particularly want to see his butt.
There's one more random thing that I wanted to mention in terms of maybe changing before, because I think we're getting long here.
We'll sum up soon here.
Okay, so the other thing that I wrote down was that it seemed that it might have benefited from having a timer, and I guess this is really for the beginning portion of it. Rather, when it's disaster movie time, obviously there's a timer going on because you're going to die, but in terms of the psychological or the suspense portion of it, there really wasn't one. It was just kind of arbitrary. It was, it's like, oh, let's get out of here, or I'm going to get the experiment going. So it didn't really have a plot-driven timer that would have increased the pressure, for the whole thing. It just kind of sat there and didn't really have anything driving it for a while. Although it was so short, maybe that doesn't seem apparent.
Yeah. What about someone mentioned? I don't know if it was you, Cam, or John, or someone mentioned that maybe that this whole thing should have taken place over a bit of a longer time period instead of.
Yeah, that was John.
Seems like less of a day. That was John.
More...
You said that it should have happened over a week.
Cam, you said it in the last video, I think, that you guys did, that it should have taken several days. But I agree. There needed to be more time. There needed to be more time for the crew of the Palomino to learn that things aren't right. It should start off that they should think this is all wonderful and magical and great, and then they gradually realize the horror they're in.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we no need to eat our rations anymore out of our tiny little ship. These guys have this huge
garden, fresh
garden,
food.
And we're eating fresh vegetables. Wow, this is so great. Look at all this. And they're living in some quarters on the ship. They're walking back and forth. They see suspicious things like, robots, burying, unquote, at sea one of their dead, and go, wait a second, that's weird. Something like that.
It would have been a much more effective suspense movie if you had that slow burn.
Yeah.
So I guess Disney, call us up, and we'll fix this up for you for the 2028 version, and let's go 2029. Let's do the anniversary, right?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't do any better than Snow White, right? Like, or any worse. I mean, sorry, any worse than Snow White.
Yeah,
bar is set pretty low. Yeah. All right. Any last minute guys on the plot we missed out that you wanted to mention? Anybody?
I think I covered all my points.
Yeah, me too. I think we chewed it up pretty good. Yeah, I did kind of want to ask who we thought would who we would possibly think of as a cast change. But
that's
Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah. Theory casting. That's not bad. Sydney Sweeney as the girl scientist.
I did say, what
that's too easy. I mean,
yeah. What if McCrae, or what if the girl wasn't on the Palomino as part of the crew? What if we leaned into the Tempest motif and had it be Reinhardt's daughter?
Boy.
And she's on the ship, and it could be Sydney Sweeney, yes, wearing devastating décolletage. And she and Charlie hit it off, and
that little romance plot, that's pretty typical for a movie. Little romance plot between the dashing.
I love a good romance B story. I don't like them as A stories, but I love them as B stories.
Oh, yeah. You might want to tune into Babylon 5 rewatch then, because they can't avoid it on that show. Can't avoid the come and go or romance side story. That's a pet peeve of mine on that show.
Well, who else? Real quick, who else would you, modern actor? You had to redo this. Who would you put? Captain or probably the first officer is even a more important. You want a grizzled old captain type, or not maybe too old, but maybe 40s.
Well, it has to be Pedro Pascal because he's in everything.
So how about Gerard Butler from 300?
Gerard Butler would actually be a really good. He could be a really good captain. I definitely would see the Dan becoming a more passive role, kind of a mentor. I'd probably kill him.
Yeah, kill him off. Who would be the main character? Who would be the young?
I don't know the younger guy. I don't know the younger guys well enough to pick. Just not Tom Holland. Not Tom Holland. I want somebody who is at least 5'9".
Yeah.
I mean, I want 6 foot, but I'll take somebody who's 5'9".
I think he should be kind of the quarterback, the all-American quarterback style. Duke, like that kind of.
Who's today's Ernest Borgnine, Snuggie? That would be Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Bruce Campbell from what's it called?
Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness. You think so?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh, him as Harry Booth. That is a fantastic casting. Oh my gosh,
make that happen. I guess he's not too old. He's pretty old, but I mean, he's good. That would be interesting. Need a dramatic theater actor to play Reinhardt. I think there's a lot of good. You can get a lot of good.
What about Gary Oldman?
There's lots of Gary Oldman. Lots of guys.
Gary Oldman. Oh my God.
What's his name? The Austrian guy who was in Inglourious Bastards and.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Christoph Waltz.
What?
Christoph Waltz.
Yes.
Oh, Dave mentions Willem Dafoe too.
He would be good.
Wouldn't be bad either.
William Dafoe did. He was the Green Goblin. He does pretty good villains. He's not. I don't think he's really a dramatic theater type actor, but he can play villain. Christopher Guest, maybe.
Is Christopher Guest the lead singer of Spinal Tap, or am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah. He's Best in Show.
Gotcha. Yes.
Yeah, I think he's the lead. Is he the lead singer? Of Spinal Tap? Yeah. He's the lead singer. He's the lead guy. I think he's one of the two main guys.
Also, Michael McKean's the other one.
Sergeant Elias. Yeah, that's that William Dafoe. If anybody's Sergeant Elias, that's his breakout role.
I'm kind of leaning toward. Somebody said it. Willem Dafoe is Reinhardt, but you had and Christoph Waltz, but you had said some. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman as Reinhardt would be absolute. So here's an offer.
There's a lot of good guys.
You know who would be great as Reinhardt? Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy kind of does everything, eh? Like he does.
Tom Hardy is just he likes to have a funny accent, and then he does weird stuff, and he would do the insanity really, really good.
Yeah. What about the scientists? The male scientist who's going to be Reinhardt's lapdog, so to speak.
Now that's who I'd make Pedro Pascal.
I don't want to see him in anything anymore.
No, I don't necessarily. Actually,
that's growing on me too. There, Weatherman.
I want to cast a black actor for that, so let's go with Rhodey.
Rhodey,
or Giancarlo Esposito. Let's lean in.
There you go.
Giancarlo Esposito. He's reserved. He has that Anthony Perkins kind of quietude, and there's a little bit of gayness, but not a lot. So
I just see him. I see him so much as a villain. It's kind of hard for me to, but I'm sure you could.
Well, but Durant was a little off himself. I mean.
Well, he's a scientist. They're always off, right?
Oh.
Steve Carroll.
Okay, so we don't have
anybody. Giancarlo Esposito is a pretty good idea, actually, though.
We don't have anybody for Dan or Charlie, though.
Well, Charlie, like I said, just not Tom Holland, a young guy, not Tom Holland, and not whoever played Paul Atreides.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, that's true. They show him.
Yeah,
everything.
Timothy Chalamet is not bad, but he's just too. For Dan, I think we said Gerard Butler,
Oh,
but
yeah,
I
that's
mean
right.
anybody who's kind of an older action star, who's kind of over the hill.
Yeah.
That he's been there,
Like
done that, but he's
John
not doing
Hamm
it
could
anymore.
probably do
Is
it, right?
fine.
Like
Who'd you say?
John
John
Hamm.
Hamm.
Yeah,
Like
John Hamm could do it.
any older actor that, like you said, could do some, play, like be a reasonable captain who's a mentor and stuff.
Right. And then Charlie, let's do a casting call. Let's go old school
Jason
and
Momoa.
introduce somebody.
Put Jason Momoa in there.
Yeah.
I see the lead is going to be, he's like I said, he's going to be the quarterback, all-American quarterback type.
Yeah.
6 feet, jawline, blonde hair type guy.
So
the
Weatherman
guy they don't cast anymore.
Yeah.
Weatherman saying that he would prefer Bruce Campbell as Durant, Anthony Perkins' part, and then Snuggie saying Steve Carell for the Ernest Borgnine. That's pretty funny.
I think we could get Jim from The Office. I think we can get. I don't know. I think the Borgnine role is. Yeah, he's old enough. I think. I think I don't even know if we're going to keep the Borgnine role. Right? We might do something a little different with that, but
well, maybe not a journalist.
You could keep it, but yeah, journalist is a little, but something like,
sniveling coward,
coward position, whatever that is. Yeah.
Well, Bruce Campbell could do that too, because Ash originally in Evil Dead was he's a sniveling coward in several of them. He goes back and forth, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
All right. That's good. We got the show. All right.
Pretty good.
We've done the show. We've cast it. Disney, we want our residuals when you remake it, because you're going to remake everything. You got our ideas in there. Yeah. Right on. Well done. I'm waiting for my check. You can make it out to Snob. That's good enough. All right, gentlemen. Thanks everybody for coming in the chat. Oh, wait. Did I forget something? Cam, for your favorite part of the show.
Go ahead.
It's the jokes, right? And I know Death Angel Shadow came in for them. And favorite part of the show. Cam's favorite part. We can't do it without this. So let me should I ask you, Cam, or do you want me to ask our guest host?
Why don't you ask John? Let him suffer through this.
No, it's not suffering. It's the best part of the show. Well, everyone stays. All right, John. Why did the black hole break up with the sun?
I don't know. Why did the black hole break up with the sun?
See, he's seen the show. He knows what to say.
Yeah, he knows it.
It needed some space. And it just gets space between people, and then out in space, the whole black holes and suns in space, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see here. Why do black holes never go on vacation?
Why do black holes never go on vacation?
They're too absorbed in their work.
I love it.
Because they absorb matter and stuff like that. All right. I got a couple, one more.
Yeah.
Let me just see which is the best of these here that I have.
I don't know. Maybe don't push your luck. I mean,
this one, I like this one here because it kind of goes to my personality here. What did one black hole say to the other?
What did one black hole say to the other?
Have you ever noticed how everything revolves around us?
I
like that one because
I like it.
I think everything revolves around me, so that's perfect for me. But right on. All right. Okay, gentlemen. That's the show. John, hey, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a good little theory cast. I rewatched our old show, and I know we talked about fixing it a little bit, but we didn't do that much about it really when I watched it again. Thanks for that. You forced me to listen to myself. I actually hate listening to myself, but but I did. I had to listen to
other people hate listening to you as well.
No, the fans love to listen to me. Everyone loves to. I just don't like it.
All right, put up a poll.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was good. Yeah. What are we doing? You don't have anything to promote, do you, John? Just you're on Twitter, causing problems on Twitter.
Yep. John_Cyrano at, on Twitter. Follow me for more, opinions about swords and sci-fi movies.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. And what do we have coming up, Cam?
Next week, Wednesday we have Babylon 5 retrospective at 11 p.m. Eastern, and next Sunday.
What
next
show
episode is episode 120, I think it is, Babylon Squared. There's a great
Squared.
So be sure to.
We give away anything for that one? That's that's where I don't want to spoil it, but they find Babylon 4. What happened to Babylon 4? Where'd it go? No one knows what's happened. We're gonna find out. Right. And as Death Angel Shadow says, the final 3 episodes of the season, yes. Babylon Squared, The Quality of Mercy, and then Chrysalis. And that's it for the season. And then, hey, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Wow. So tune in for that. But next Sunday, special episode where we will be deviating from sci-fi and delving into the, I think, a 1981 classic Excalibur. And we'll be having a special guest who was in the chat earlier, Aldous.
Yes, he's coming on for that. And this is I'm looking forward to this because honestly, I've never seen. I'm sure I've seen little pieces here and there for whatever reason, but I don't think I've ever sat down and watched the whole Excalibur movie. And people online have been talking about it recently about how great it is, and I've heard that it's quite good. And it is the high fantasy movie, that the best high fantasy movie. Is that correct, Cam? High fantasy, or is it more of the Arthurian fantasy as opposed to high fantasy?
It's pretty surreal in a lot of ways. So it gets a little, it's not grounded. let's put it that way. So I guess you could say high fantasy.
Would you call it? Mainly Tolkien is usually considered high fantasy, that style.
Well,
that type of thing, right?
It's not like that. That's for sure.
No. So it's not so you wouldn't say it's high fantasy, maybe? I don't know.
Wild. It's wild. Again, it's more like surreal fantasy, I'd say.
Oh, okay. Get me on my science fiction categories. I'm a little better at that, but when it comes to fantasy, I'm not as good.
See, Aldous is ready.
It's ridiculously it's ridiculously fantastic and boobs. Well, we can all appreciate the female form. Those of us who are male, we can appreciate the female form. Nothing wrong with that. It's just great. All right, and Aldous will be there for that. Right on. And we do have. I'll just want to say Babylon 5. We often have a guest host on. So if you're interested in, coming on, if you're a fan of the show, you watch the show, and you like Babylon 5. You want to come on as a guest host for one of the last 3 episodes, let us know. The only thing you have to do is you got to talk, you got to have a mic, and you got to watch the show before we do it. That's all. Some women appreciate the female form too. So, yes, of course. That's of course, yes. The only thing is you can't, if you want to do one of the shows, you can't do Chrysalis because that's already spoken for, the final one of the season. So you have to pick either Babylon or Babylon Squared or The Quality of Mercy, and you better do quick because Babylon Squared is in 3 days. So yeah. All right. I think that's it.
Well, I want to thank John for coming on and giving us our reason to revisit the black hole. So you did a great job, and maybe we could have you back sometime.
That would be
for
fantastic.
Sure. Yes,
I'll be in the chat for the Excalibur discussion.
Right on. Yeah, thanks, John. Cam's always got to keep. I always forget to thank everybody, so he's always got to keep me on the straight and narrow with that. So yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. It's awesome. All right. Okay, that's it for the show, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you on Wednesday or maybe next Sunday. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.